I never thought betrayal could come wearing the face of my own sister. One ordinary afternoon, she barged into my house without knocking, her voice ringing like a command. "I'm throwing my birthday party here." I laughed nervously, thinking she was joking, but the smile on her face wasn't a smile. It was a claim of ownership. Hours later, my phone buzzed with a notification. She had created a public event online, inviting dozens of strangers to my home, using my address, my space, my life, without a single word of consent. When my sister stormed into my living room, she didn't come empty-handed. Her phone was already in her grasp, camera pointed directly at my face. "Smile for the viewers," she said, voice high-pitched with excitement. Before I could even process what was happening, she went live on social media, spinning the story as though I had given her permission. "Look at this beautiful house," she told her audience, panning across my kitchen and dining area. "My sister is so generous. She's letting me throw my birthday party here." I froze, a polite half-smile plastered on my lips, knowing hundreds of people were watching in real time. "That's not what I said," I tried to interject, but she cut me off with a dramatic laugh. "Oh, don't be modest, Rachel. She's always been the supportive one in the family." With a single broadcast, she painted me as the gracious hostess, and when I attempted to clarify, it was drowned beneath her narrative. As the live stream continued, the comments poured in. "So sweet of you. Wish I had a sister like that." And then the sting. "Why does Rachel look so reluctant? Don't be stingy, it's family." My throat tightened. Somehow, in less than 5 minutes, I had been cornered into the role of a villain in my own home. When the camera finally clicked off, I tried to keep my voice calm. "I didn't agree to this. You need to leave." She rolled her eyes, tossing her hair. "Stop being dramatic. It's just one night. You act like I'm stealing from you." But she was stealing my privacy, my peace, my control. Still, I stayed silent, my upbringing pulling me back to the old script. Don't cause trouble. Keep the family happy. That reflex to keep the peace had been drilled into me since childhood. Later that evening, when the house was finally quiet, I brewed myself a cup of chamomile tea and sat at my desk with my journal. My handwriting shook as I scribbled across the page. Why is it always easier to betray myself than to say no to her? Memories from my childhood surfaced, being the peacemaker between my parents, apologizing for fights I hadn't caused, agreeing to chores just to keep everyone from yelling. Pleasing others had been my survival mechanism, but at 35 it felt more like a prison. I closed my journal and stared into the steam rising from my mug. Have you ever said yes just because you were afraid of being called selfish? I whispered to no one, but maybe to the version of myself who still lived in those old fears. The next morning my phone buzzed. A notification popped up. Event created, Sarah's birthday bash at Rachel's house. My stomach dropped. She had done it. A public event, complete with my home address and a list of invited guests already climbing into the dozens. Strangers were commenting, "Can't wait. What should I bring?" My own living room had been turned into an open invitation, and I hadn't been given a choice. I wanted to scream, but instead I sat down, trying to steady my breath. For years, I had ignored the signs, the temporary loans that were never repaid, the times she borrowed my clothes or jewelry with promises to return them, which of course she didn't, the countless favors she demanded, rides, babysitting, errands, always framed as just this once. And every time I convinced myself it was normal. That's what sisters did. But deep down, I knew. These weren't favors, they were expectations. My life, my time, my belongings had been treated as her entitlement. And when I dared to push back, she gaslit me. "You're remembering wrong." I was just joking. "Why are you making everything so serious? Family doesn't keep score." I used to believe her. I used to swallow the guilt and think maybe I was being too rigid, too unloving, but something in me was shifting. Loyalty didn't mean surrendering my boundaries. Loving someone didn't mean erasing myself. That afternoon, I called my therapist. Her warm voice steadied me. "Rachel, you don't have to swing to the extreme of cutting everyone off. Start with soft boundaries. Say no with kindness, but say no." Her words landed like an anchor. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't cruel. I had a right to protect my space, to demand respect, even from family, especially from family. Later that night, as I walked to the kitchen, I noticed something odd. The small ceramic bowl near my door, where I always kept my spare house key, was empty. My chest tightened. I rifled through drawers, checked my bag, but the key was gone, vanished. I sank onto the couch, realization crashing over me. She hadn't just planned a party, she had planned an invasion. The next morning, I opened my laptop, hoping the nightmare had somehow vanished overnight. Instead, it had multiplied. The Facebook event was everywhere. My sister had tagged half the town, plastered my full address across the page, and even uploaded photos of my living room she'd stolen from her live stream. "Rachel's house is the perfect spot," she wrote, as if I were nothing more than her unpaid party planner. My hands shook so badly, I nearly spilled coffee across the keyboard. My heart pounded in my chest like it was trying to break free. Every comment I scrolled through cut deeper. "Can't wait to see everyone there." "Rachel's place looks amazing." Then one that made me sick. "Thanks for hosting, Rachel. You're the best sister." I wanted to scream. I wanted to type in all caps, "I never agreed to this." But before I could act, another notification flashed. An unfamiliar account, with my profile picture copied, commenting under the post, "Of course, I can't wait to see you all tomorrow." My stomach twisted. My sister had created a fake account pretending to be me, assuring the guests that yes, I was thrilled about this invasion. The betrayal cut deeper than any lie she had ever told. She wasn't just twisting the truth, she was erasing my voice entirely. I gripped the edge of my desk to keep from shaking. I was caught between rage and despair, my mind split into fragments of disbelief. How dare she? How do I stop this? What if strangers actually show up? That evening, as I stepped outside to collect the mail, my neighbor Mrs. Collins waved me over. She was the type who always found something to complain about. My recycling bin placement, the length of my grass. But this time, her face was pale. "Rachel," she whispered, glancing toward my driveway. "I saw a group of young men measuring your porch earlier today. They had balloons and boxes. One of them said something about setting up for tomorrow." The blood drained from my face. My sister hadn't just invited people. She had already started preparing my home as if it belonged to her. I closed my door, bolted the locks, and sat at my desk, forcing my hands to stop trembling long enough to act. I opened the event page again and began taking screenshots of every detail: the guest list, the posts, the fake account comments. I captured timestamps, metadata, anything that might prove this wasn't my doing. My phone filled with evidence, each image both a dagger and a shield. Next, I called a lawyer, recommended by a friend. My voice quivered as I explained the situation. She listened patiently, then said, "Rachel, this is trespass and potentially fraud. You have a right to privacy. If anyone shows up, call the police immediately. But for now, document everything." I hung up, steadier than before. Action dulled the panic. Then I reached out to Daniel, my college friend turned IT professional. Within an hour, he had backed up the entire Facebook event, downloaded copies of the live stream, and traced the fake account back to my sister's email. The rage inside me simmered into something sharper, focus. Still, I needed air. I drove across town to see my godmother, the woman who had stepped in countless times when my parents chose chaos over care. She brewed chamomile tea, the same kind I had made the night before, and let me talk. No judgment, no interruptions, just listening. "Rachel," she said finally, placing a hand over mine, "you have spent your life protecting other people's feelings. Maybe it's time you protect your own peace." Her words softened me, a breather in the storm. For a moment, I remembered I wasn't just a victim. I had choices. When I returned home, I found an unexpected message in my mailbox. It was a flash drive tucked into an envelope with no note. Suspicious, I plugged it into my laptop. The files were video clips, surveillance footage from a neighbor's outdoor camera. To my shock, it showed my sister and two friends unloading boxes of decorations into my backyard at dusk. The difficult neighbor, Mrs. Collins, had provided it. The woman who had always seemed like an enemy had quietly become an ally. I watched the grainy footage, my pulse steadying for the first time all day. This was undeniable proof. She wasn't just planning a party. She was staging a coup of my entire life. I sat back in my chair, eyes on the ceiling. The fear that had paralyzed me hours earlier was gone. In its place grew something different, resolve. I wasn't going to plead with her anymore. I wasn't going to argue, cry, or beg. I was going to take back control. I opened a travel website and booked a flight for the next morning. One ticket, one destination. I didn't even tell myself where yet, because it didn't matter. All that mattered was leaving before the chaos descended. The confirmation email pinged in my inbox. Departure, 9:15 a.m. Arrival, somewhere far from here. I leaned back, exhaling slowly. Tomorrow, when she brought her army of guests to storm my home, she would find nothing but locked doors and silence. But the real question wasn't whether I would leave. It was what I would do once I was gone. By dawn, I was no longer trembling. The fear that had wrapped itself around me had hardened into determination. I sat at my desk, surrounded by open tabs and folders, piecing together a timeline of my sister's betrayal. First, the livestream where she declared to her followers that I was hosting her birthday. Then the Facebook event plastered with my address. Finally, the surveillance footage from Mrs. Collins that showed her dragging balloons and boxes of wine coolers into my backyard. I layered them into a single digital file, a neat progression of trespass. Each piece of evidence was a brick in a wall I was building, a wall she could not climb. My smart lock app revealed multiple failed entry attempts late at night, which I screenshotted and saved. My security camera picked up license plates of cars parked outside, belonging to her friends, and my phone, flooded with her texts, showed how she pressured people to RSVP quickly. promising Rachel insisted. She begged me to let her host. That last part made my jaw tighten. Lies were one thing, but twisting my voice into a weapon against me was another. While combing through screenshots, I stumbled upon a private group chat, leaked by one of the invited guests. My sister had written, "Rachel begged me to throw my party there. She said it would make her feel useful." The room tilted for a second. Useful, as though my worth existed only in how much I could give her. As though my resistance was a performance, and her manipulation was generosity. I pushed away from the desk, heart pounding too fast. I clipped the leash onto Max, my golden retriever, and walked him through the neighborhood. The morning air was cool against my cheeks. Max wagged his tail, oblivious to the war I was fighting. For a few minutes as he trotted beside me, I remembered what normal felt like. The rhythm of his paws, the leaves brushing in the wind, the steady beat of life that wasn't chaos. By the time we returned, I could breathe again. I sat back down and arranged the files into a secure folder, labeling everything with timestamps. My lawyer's voice echoed in my mind. "Don't confront her. Don't give her ammunition. Let her build her own noose." I replayed that advice in my head, steadying myself. It wasn't about fighting fire with fire. It was about patience, precision, and letting her theatrics collapse under their own weight. Still, I knew evidence alone wasn't enough. I needed allies. I called my therapist first. She reminded me, gently but firmly, that my feelings were valid, that setting boundaries wasn't cruelty. Then Daniel, my IT friend, who offered to set up encrypted storage so nothing could accidentally vanish. My lawyer confirmed she'd be on call in case anyone tried to trespass on party night. And Mrs. Collins, surprisingly, knocked on my door with another USB stick, saying, "If anyone else underestimates you, tell them the neighborhood is watching." For the first time, I realized I wasn't alone. The circle I thought was so small was quietly expanding. Allies weren't always the ones we expected. They were the ones who valued truth over convenience. I opened a new document and wrote out my strategy in 2 clear columns. Plan A: leave the city on the morning of the party. Lock down the house with security measures. Activate smart lock logs to record every attempted entry. Plan B: a decoy. Schedule posts to publish automatically during the event. Screenshots of her invitations, video clips, the fake account. Pair them with a short legal disclaimer. Unauthorized use of my home is trespass. Documentation has been filed. I leaned back and let the plan settle into me. I didn't need to scream or fight. I just had to step aside and let the truth shine under its own weight. I thought about the people watching my sister's live streams, the ones convinced I was selfish or cold. What would they think when faced with undeniable evidence? What story would she spin when the lies collapsed? I whispered into the quiet room, as if speaking to an unseen audience. If you had to build your own team, who would you call first? Law, IT, or Allie? My voice was steady, a silent invitation to reflect, not just for them, but for me. Finally, I opened my scheduling software. With Daniel's help, I set the autopost to go live at 7 p.m., the exact time her party was meant to begin. The files were queued, the captions written, the truth packaged neatly, like an arrow waiting to be released. I saved the settings, double-checked them, and sat back with a long exhale. For the first time in years, I wasn't reacting. I wasn't bending or breaking. I was orchestrating. When the clock struck midnight, my phone chimed with a reminder from my lawyer. Do not confront her. Let them perform. Let them reveal themselves. I closed my eyes, letting the words settle into my chest. Tomorrow, I would board a plane. Tomorrow night, my house would be locked, my posts would go live, and her stage would turn into a trap of her own design. And as I drifted into uneasy sleep, one thought repeated like a drumbeat. This time, the story will not belong to her. The day of the party arrived with an eerie calm. My house sat behind locked doors, every window secured, every camera activated. Signs were taped to the front gate. This is private property. All activities recorded. The message was simple, legal, and impossible to ignore. By 6:30, cars began pulling into my street. Strangers spilled out carrying balloons, gift bags, trays of food. They walked up to the porch, laughing, expecting music, lights, and an open door. Instead, they found silence. Their faces shifted from cheerful anticipation to baffled frowns as they tugged on the locked handle. The cameras captured every expression: confusion, irritation, disbelief. Some knocked, some rang the bell, but no one answered. Behind the scenes, my system triggered another layer of defense. As soon as their phones connected to the Wi-Fi my sister had bragged about, an automated message was sent directly to her email. This property is protected by law. Unauthorized gatherings constitute trespass. Documentation has been filed. My sister read it, her smile faltering. She had expected resistance, maybe even an argument, but not cold, calculated silence paired with legal precision. Meanwhile, I was 30,000 feet in the air. The hum of the plane was steady, the seatbelt snug around my waist. I opened a paperback novel, letting the words wash over me. My pulse slowed. I wasn't celebrating her humiliation, nor was I gloating. I was reclaiming peace, deliberately choosing calm instead of chaos. The passengers around me were absorbed in their own worlds, oblivious to the storm unraveling miles below. For the first time in years, I felt untouchable. Back at my house, the crowd grew restless. Guests checked their phones, whispering as the first of my scheduled posts went live. The notification dinged across dozens of screens, a screenshot of the Facebook event, with my sister's name clearly shown as the creator. The caption read simply, "Unauthorized, not approved, evidence attached." My sister's phone buzzed again. This time it was my Instagram story, an image of the group chat where she claimed I had begged to host her party. Names of innocent participants were blurred, but her messages glared in black and white. Rachel insisted. She said it would make her feel useful. The betrayal was undeniable. She could deny words spoken, but not digital receipts. Guests began to exchange uneasy looks. The murmurs grew louder. Then my second scheduled post dropped. The surveillance clip from Mrs. Collins, showing my sister unloading party supplies into my backyard. The camera timestamp matched the night before. The caption was short, direct, unauthorized entry. All footage documented. A hush fell over the crowd as people stared at their screens, then at my locked front door. The image of my sister, once the charismatic center of attention, wavered. Her confidence cracked as reality surfaced, and then came the final twist, one I hadn't expected. Among the guests was a woman with a large online following, someone my sister had desperately tried to impress. She commented publicly under my post, "This is not hosting, this is boundary violation. No one deserves to have their home stolen from them." Within minutes, her words gathered hundreds of likes, shared by others in attendance. The tide turned. People began leaving, slipping away, with their balloons and trays of food, embarrassed to have been part of the spectacle. Half the crowd dispersed within 20 minutes. The others stayed, demanding explanations my sister couldn't give. Every excuse she muttered fell flat under the weight of the evidence displayed on their phones. I imagined the scene unfolding from my window seat on the plane. Not a roaring victory, but a quiet implosion of lies. She hadn't just been exposed, she had been cornered by her own theater. And yet, beneath the layers of strategy, I kept my humanity. I didn't cheer, I didn't laugh. I simply turned another page of my book, savoring the stillness. My revenge wasn't about cruelty, it was about truth, about finally allowing consequences to catch up with years of manipulation. As the plane drifted through the night sky, I closed my eyes, hearing the echo of my therapist's words. Boundaries are not walls, they are doors that only you can open. Back on the ground, my sister's phone lit up again. The final auto post scheduled for 7:30 had just gone live. Its caption was one question, simple and direct. Which side are you on? Comment boundary if you believe in respect. The digital world answered swiftly. Notifications piled in. Boundary, boundary, boundary. Guests who had stayed behind shifted uncomfortably as they realized the tide of opinion had turned against her. One by one, they too began to slip away, leaving her alone on a porch littered with streamers and unopened bottles of wine. Her story had unraveled in less than an hour. Mine, for the first time, was intact. When the plane touched down the next morning, my phone erupted with notifications. Dozens of messages from mutual friends, cousins, even acquaintances I hadn't spoken to in years. Most were short. Sorry. Didn't realize. She made it sound different. I scrolled through their words with a strange detachment. For once, the weight wasn't on my chest. They weren't blaming me. They were untagging themselves from her posts, unfollowing her account, quietly acknowledging they had been complicit in a lie. Then came a longer message from my cousin Ellen. Rachel, I need you to know something. She tried to convince Aunt Martha to rewrite her will, to put the house in her name instead of yours. She told us you didn't care about inheritance. She wanted the deed signed over. Some of us refused to go along with it, but it was closer than you think. I stared at the words until they blurred. So that was the truth beneath all the noise. It wasn't just about a birthday party. It was about property, money, power. My home had never been a backdrop for her celebration. It was a prize she wanted to claim. I forwarded Ellen's message to my lawyer. Within the hour, the attorney drafted a carefully worded letter. It wasn't a threat, not a demand, but a warning. It laid out the trespass, the impersonation, the property invasion, and the attempted manipulation of inheritance. It reminded my sister that continued behavior would have legal consequences. But the tone was measured, professional, designed not to escalate, but to educate. When I read it, tears welled in my eyes, not from anger, from relief. Someone was finally putting into words the injustice I had carried for years. For the first time, I didn't feel alone in defending myself. That night, I sat by my bedroom window, a cup of tea cooling in my hands, and cried softly. It wasn't the sobbing of despair, but the release of a weight I hadn't realized I'd been holding. The fight wasn't over, but for the first time, I felt the tide had turned. Then came the buzz of a new message. It was from her. I need to see you, to explain. Please, just once. No cameras, no audience, just us. I hesitated. Every instinct screamed that she would twist the truth again. And yet, some part of me wanted to hear it, if only to close the door properly. We met in a small cafe halfway between our homes. Neutral ground, public but quiet. She arrived late, sunglasses pushed up into her hair, her expression carefully arranged into contrition. "Rachel," she began, voice trembling, just enough to sound rehearsed, "I messed up. I needed this party. You don't understand the pressure I'm under." I said nothing, letting her continue. She leaned closer. "The debts keep piling up. People expect me to look successful. I thought if I threw something big, it would buy me time, make me look stable. I didn't mean to hurt you." The words dripped with half-truths. Yes, she had debts. Yes, she craved attention. But she wasn't apologizing. She was auditioning for sympathy. And then she flipped the script entirely. "You've always had everything. Your house, your job, your friends. I just wanted to feel important for once. But you made me look like a criminal." Her voice cracked on the last word, as though I were the one who had staged this entire fiasco. I took a slow breath. "I'm not here to fight you," I said quietly. "I'm here to make things clear. No more using my name to cover your lies. No more entering my home without permission. No more parties, no more favors. No more pretending I said yes when I said no." Her eyes flashed. For a moment, the mask slipped. "So what? You'll just abandon me? After everything I've done for you?" I didn't flinch. "You mean after everything I've done for you?" Silence stretched between us. Then she tried again, softer this time. "Just one last chance. Please, I promise I'll change." Something inside me shifted. Once I would have folded. Once I would have believed. But now I understood the difference between compassion and complicity. "I forgive you," I said, and meant it. Her shoulders lifted, hope sparking in her eyes. But before she could speak, I added, "Forgiveness doesn't mean permission. I can care about you without letting you hurt me again. That ends here." Her lips parted, then closed again. For the first time, she looked speechless. Later, as I walked out of the cafe, the air crisp against my skin, I felt lighter. Not triumphant, not cruel, just free. At home, I opened my laptop and began drafting something new, a personal charter of boundaries, a document that would live not only in my files but in my life, rules that protected my space, my peace, my future. And as I typed, I thought, the next chapter of my life won't be written by her. It will be written by me. In the weeks after our cafe meeting, I rebuilt my life piece by piece. The first step was physical. I upgraded my smart lock system, installing new codes only I controlled. A whitelist of approved contacts ensured no one outside my circle could buzz in. I cut off her spare keys, replaced the hidden backup, and set my cameras to alert me instantly for suspicious activity. The fortress I built wasn't just wood and steel, it was clarity. Next, I drew up what I called my boundary charter. It was a document both practical and symbolic, shared with the family, so there could be no excuses. It listed the terms clearly. No entering my home without invitation. No using my name for events or loans. No spreading information about me without consent. It wasn't angry or punitive. It was a declaration of self-respect. Of course, some relatives grumbled. "You're overreacting. Family doesn't need contracts." But I no longer bowed to guilt. My charter wasn't a cage. It was a map, showing where my land began and where it ended. For those who respected it, I left the door open. For those who didn't, the door stayed shut. In the quiet of my kitchen, I found new rhythms. I cooked pasta with a close friend, laughter bubbling louder than the boiling water. I repotted plants by the window, letting dirt gather under my fingernails. I took walks without glancing over my shoulder. These moments, ordinary and tender, were the real victory. Not drama, not revenge, but the daily act of living freely. One evening, as I wiped dishes dry, I smiled to myself and whispered, "What would you add to your boundary charter?" The question wasn't for my sister, nor for my relatives, but for anyone listening silently, those who might recognize themselves in my story. Then came the unexpected email. Subject line, Workplace Wellness Series, invitation to speak. My company's HR director had followed the online fallout, had seen the way I navigated public humiliation with calm evidence rather than chaos. They wanted me to share my journey at an employee well-being talk. My stomach fluttered as I read the invitation twice over. My private pain had become something else, an opportunity to teach. At first, I hesitated. Did I really want to stand in front of colleagues and bear this wound? But then I thought of the countless people who had sent messages after the party imploded, admitting they too had been manipulated by family, that they didn't know how to say no. Maybe my story wasn't just mine anymore. So I said yes. That yes opened a floodgate. I began writing about my experience on a personal blog, not to shame my sister, but to explore the patterns of manipulation, the necessity of boundaries, the courage of saying no. Readers found it, shared it, and soon my inbox filled with letters. One wrote, "You gave me permission to stop answering midnight phone calls from my father." Another said, "I didn't realize my cousin was gaslighting me until I read your words." The messages humbled me. I wasn't a hero. I was simply someone who had chosen to stop hiding. But in choosing that, I had given others permission to step into their own power. Then came the twist that softened me most. An old friend, quiet and reserved in high school, reached out. "Rachel," she wrote, "your story gave me the courage to finally tell my sister no. I thought she'd hate me forever. Instead, she respected me more. I never realized I could draw a line without losing love." I sat at my desk with tears in my eyes, realizing the ripple effect was larger than I could have imagined. My personal battle had become a lantern for others stumbling through the same darkness. Still, amid the messages and opportunities, I held on to the ordinary. On Sundays, I cooked breakfast slowly, savoring the smell of coffee. I spent afternoons curled on the couch with Max asleep at my feet. I let the stillness remind me why I had fought so hard, not to win against her, but to win myself back. One evening, as the sun dipped low, I sat by my window, bathed in amber light. I no longer rehearsed comebacks in my head. I no longer feared the sound of a knock at the door. The silence wasn't heavy anymore. It was holy. For years, I had survived, barely, quietly, painfully. But survival is not enough. I had crossed into something more. I had rebuilt a life that was mine, untouched by manipulation, unshaken by guilt. The journey had not made me bitter. It had made me whole. Justice was sweet, yes, but the real reward was peace. The real treasure was freedom. I closed my journal one last time, writing only this sentence across the page. You don't just survive, you thrive. And for the first time, I truly believed it.